Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you're joining from. So this is the book club meeting, and today we are having Avinash Matta, who is an active member in CJ community, and he is ICF ACC certified with 12 years of experience in content strategy, communications, and social media. And he's also an author and award-winning playwright. And his most recent play, Romeo and Shakuntala, premiered this year in Mumbai. So let me welcome Avinash Matta and hand over the ask. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jesse. Happy to be here. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining on Saturday. So, I'm a avid reader, and I've been reading a couple of coaching books since I started my coaching journey. So when I saw that there's a book club at CJ and get an opportunity to do a book review, I was like, why not? So I picked the book Coaching A to Z by Hasun Moon, and I'd like to share my experience of reading this book today. So a little bit about me. I think Jesse already shared so much. Thank you. I'm from Hyderabad. I started my coaching journey this year. Recently got my ACC credential about 2 weeks ago. Like I said, I love reading, talking about books, and sharing my thoughts from books. So, without any further ado, I think I'll just dive into this. But before I jump into it, I want to ask you, do you notice anything curious on the book cover? You can type it on chat or unmute and share.
There is a small smiley kind of figure at the bottom. That's
Yes,
one thing I see extraordinary.
yes. So, the tagline of the book is The Extraordinary Use of Ordinary Words, which I think is a beautiful tagline, and the book does justice to that. But below that, next to the author's name, you see a potato with a smiley. And I always wondered, what does that potato mean? I never found the answer. I went to the website, I went to their social media channels, I looked at the author's website. Although the potato is everywhere, but there's no explanation why there's a potato, neither on in the book itself. So initially I thought it's a couch potato, but then I thought maybe it's just coach potato. But it's fun, it's cute, and we'll definitely meet. No, it's not a jelly bean, it's a potato. I can zoom in and show you. It's an actual potato. And we'll meet Coach Potato again when we start the book review. And if you find the Coach Potato, if you're able to discover him on the slide, do type it on chat. Okay. So, what are we going to do today? I'll quickly share the agenda. We'll start with a small activity, a reflection exercise. Then I'll talk about the author. Then we'll jump into the book review. And then I'll also share a chapter summary. I'll summarize one of the chapters of the book for everybody. And then we'll have a quick poll where you will get to choose which chapter you would like to witness the summary for. And we'll do one more chapter summary with a follow up activity. And we'll open up for discussion. Sounds fair? Cool. So let's start with a quick, easy activity. You'll see an image, and when you see the image, I want you to think of one word, only one word that comes to your mind, and type it out in chat. Okay? All right, here we go. Innovation. Wow. Thanks, Divya. Light. Wonderful, Jesse. Illumination. Yes. Any other words that anyone wants to share? Light bulb moment. Wow. Wonderful. Thanks. Okay. So we have a few words. innovation, light, illumination, light bulb. And I'm sure if I were to get into a conversation or if we talk more about what does this word mean to you, we'll all come up with very interesting, different meanings of what that word means to us, right? So the objective of this activity was just to try and see what words mean to you, because that's essentially what this book is about. So I'll move to the book review, Coaching A to Z, the extraordinary use of ordinary words. It's basically about how different words, different things to different people, and how, as coaches, we can use these words in these conversations. Inspiration, lovely. Thanks for sharing that. Cool. So we'll come back to talking about the use of words. I'll quickly share a little bit about the author. Hazen is a communication scientist, an educator, and she's also the author of Coaching A to Z. She's also coached some other books in collaboration with others, Thriving Women, Thriving World, and Foundations of Coaching. She is someone who's very passionate about conversations and the impact conversations can have on people. She believes that conversations can change the world. And she does that. She practices having better conversations for people by training, coaching, consulting. And she also has an academic and professional background. Her research in coaching, dialogues, and pedagogy from the University of Toronto led to the development of a simple coaching model, dialogic orientation quadrant. I think some of us have discussed this in our WhatsApp groups too, what this model stands for. It's a very simple model that we can use in our coaching conversations. And when she's not writing, she enjoys filmmaking, carpentry, golf. She's a lover of early morning naps. Sorry, is that naps? Wait, yes, early mornings, naps, good coffee, and fine pens with fine nips. And the best part is at the end of the book, the author has given permission to anybody to share copies of the book, to host webinars, share learnings, have online meetings, and talk about the book, which is very generous of her. So with that, I'll jump into the book review. I'll just also show you my own copy of the book with a few notes on the side. So how did I find this book? Number one, let me talk about the structure. And those of you with a keen eye, see if you can locate Coach Potato on this slide. And if you do, let me know in the chat where they are. Okay, so the book has a very easy structure. There are 26 chapters, one chapter for each letter. A for a particular word, B for something, C for something, and so on up to Z. So Hesun picks up one word and then she goes deep into that word and how we can use that word in our coaching conversations. So 26 chapters, one word for each alphabet. Each chapter has three sections. There'll be a story, a real life example or a case study of how that word is used in a conversation, and a reflection guide, which we can use as readers to, reflect on ourselves. How do we use that word, or there are certain questions that we can use for self-reflection. And the book can be read without following a chronological order. Doesn't mean you have to start with chapter one. You can start with any chapter randomly and read it. And it's very breezy, simple, easy to consume. How did I read it? I would randomly open the book, or I would go to the index, see which word am I resonating with today, and open that chapter and read that. And I took my own sweet time. I've been with this book for like a couple of months now. I either read one word in a week, or sometimes I'm also reading one word in a day. And one thing that I would definitely like to share, when I first picked the book, I saw Coaching A to Z, and I thought, oh, this is about coaching. Maybe it's like a Bible on coaching or like a dictionary, and there'll be so much to learn about coaching. And I quickly realized that's not the case. This book doesn't focus purely on ICF coaching. And Hasun herself is also a coach, therapist, consultant. So throughout the book, you'll see a lot of that coming. She touches upon therapy, she touches upon coaching, she touches upon consulting. The book is more about how you can use ordinary words in extraordinary ways in your daily conversations. So that's something that we should be mindful about so that we have the right expectations when we are reading the book. Now, what did I like? What did I not like? What I like about this book is there's so much to absorb, reflect, remember. I keep going back to the book every now and then when I think of a particular word and I think, okay, how did Hasun use this word, or what was her thoughts on this word? So, and every time I open the book, every time I read the same chapter, there's always something new that I find an insight or a reflection. What I don't like about the book, like I said, with coaching in its title, when I bought the book, I thought, oh, it's all about coaching, everything you need to know about coaching, like a guide or something. Very soon I realized, no, it's not. It's about coaching, therapy, consulting. And the lines can get blurred and also repetitive. Sometimes you might have read something in the second chapter. You'll come across that again somewhere, let's say in the 18th chapter, and you'll feel that it's a little repetitive. However, I would still say it's not something that should stop us from reading the book. I would still recommend that go ahead, buy a copy, read the book. It is very useful, very insightful, and I've found it. I found that it has enhanced the way I have conversations. All right, with that, shall we jump into one of the chapter summaries? Okay, so I'm picked up T for toward. This is one of my favorite chapters, and you'll understand why there is an image of a airport and taxis, and you can still see Coach Potato somewhere if you find him. Okay, so as I said, every chapter in this book has a story, a real life example, or a case study, and a reflection. So let's start with the story. Most stories in the book, or at least most stories from the chapters I've chosen for this session, are about Hesun's own journey. So this story is when the author was working as a camp coordinator at a school, and the author confesses that how she's always had trouble with a sense of direction. Her inner GPS doesn't work. She'll go left when she wants to go right, or she'll go right when she wants to go left, and she doesn't remember the directions or routes. So she was a camp coordinator at a school, and she had a group of kids whom she had to assist on a hiking trip. And in that trip, they lost trail. There she is in the middle of nowhere with a group of kids, and she has no idea where they are, how to find their way back. Now, what happens? I don't want to reveal too much, no spoilers, so that when you are reading the book, you will also have a good experience. But nothing less of a miracle that happens, and they find their way back. And this leads to the author thinking how important it is to have a sense of direction in our conversations, right? And then she talks
Hmm.
about this case study or a real life example. And in this example, there's a client who's always talking about what they don't want to deal with. Oh, I don't want to deal with that colleague at work. I don't want to deal with this particular project. I don't want to do this. This is so annoying. And so then Hasten asks, okay, these are all the things that you don't want. These are all the things you don't want to work. But what is the thing you want to work towards? Where do you want to go? And that shifts the client's perspective. And the client starts thinking, oh, okay, what do I want? So she talks about avoidance goals and approach goals, how we can move our clients from avoidance goals to approach goals using the simple word to word. And she shares a beautiful analogy. Imagine you've just landed at an airport, you step out and you hail the taxi. What does the taxi guy ask? Where to? Where do you want to go? A taxi driver never asks, where did you come from? Imagine what would happen if a taxi driver says, where did you come from? And let's say you indulge in that conversation. You say, oh, okay, I came from Hyderabad and this and that. And you both will be there chatting for like half an hour, but you won't move anywhere. If you have to move, then one of you has to say where to. So similarly, in coaching conversations, a lot of times when clients share a lot about what's happening, it's up to the coach to think, okay, where are we moving towards? And there's a reflection guide at the end of this chapter, two of the questions that I picked up. And feel free if you want to answer these in chat. moved you closer towards what you care about? What avoidance goals would you like to shift to approach goals? I'll just give everybody a moment here. Sorry.
What is this avoidance goal?
So avoidance goal is something that, when people say, oh, I don't want this, I don't want to deal with this annoying colleague, or I don't want to work on that project. They're always focused on what they don't want. An approach goal is where, what do you want? Shifting towards that. So I'll just give a minute for everybody to read, reflect. If anybody wants to share something, either in chat or unmute and share something, feel free to do that. If not, we'll move to the next. We have a poll after this, but I'll just take a moment here. Okay, good to move forward. So we have a poll now. Which word shall we dive into next? B for becoming, S for suppose, Z for zero. Feel free to post it in chat. Oh, thanks for sharing a reflection, GC. I'm just reading your comment. This is your avoidance goal. You don't want that. So what would be the approach goal then? If you're comfortable sharing.
I think I'm having difficulty there. So I'll not, I don't know. So I'll be tell the
That's okay. Yeah,
set
that's
for
okay. But good that you have that awareness of what this is. Thanks for sharing that. All right, everybody says Z for zero. Okay, give me a moment. And that slide. Okay, here we go. This is a very interesting chapter. So the story here talks about when the author had to live with her nephews during the COVID pandemic, during the lockdown. So she was living with her mother and also her nephews. They're all living in the same place. And every time the author would ask them, what are you eating? What are you wearing? What are you doing? Her nephews would say, there's nothing to eat. There's nothing to wear. There's nothing to do. Imagine in that lockdown era where everybody is just at home and you're just not stepping outside. So what that does to your psyche, you're always thinking there's nothing. And one day, Hasun's mom, she's just sitting at the dining table, and instead of asking, what do you have to eat or something on those lines, she notices one of Hasun's nephew walk into the kitchen, and she says, are you planning to make eggs? If so, make one for me too. And that suddenly shifts the perspective. Instead of saying there's nothing to eat, the nephew starts noticing, oh, I can make this. Or maybe, grandma, should I make this too for you? And how that perspective from there is nothing to there is something. So she calls it assuming the presence of progress. So assume that your client is progressing in some way or the other. And she shares this with an interesting real life example. Insu Kim Berg, she's a Korean psychotherapist. She's also the founder of solution focused approach to therapy and coaching. So, you know how we use the scaling question in coaching? Where are you from 0 to 10? So, instead of asking 0 to 10, she asks 1 to 10. So, she asks, what happens when we use when we ask a client, where are you from 0 to 10? More often than not, the client says 0. So what Insu did was she said, where are you from 1 to 10? And the client said, maybe at a 1 or 2. And the response that Insu gives is, oh, so you're already at a 1 to 2. That sounds good. So you're not at a 0, you're at a 1 to 2. What is helping you be at a 1 to 2? And that just helped the client think, oh, yeah, I'm not at 0. I'm already at 1 or 2. And I feel this is such an interesting technique. Instead of asking 0 to 10, you ask 1 to 10, and you reflect it back to the client that they're already somewhere, they're already at 1 and not 0. So that's what Hazen calls assuming the presence of progress. As coaches, we always assume that the client is progressing, progress is happening. So that's how she used this word 0. In the reflection guide, Hazen brings up a very different use of the word 0. She talks about ground zero. Ground zero is basically center of intense change or activity. It's like when there's an earthquake, where is the epicenter? So ground zero is like that when it comes to major disasters or crisis. What was the ground zero moment? So she says, if you had an experience of your life's ground zero, what was your greatest learning? And if you're going through it right now, if your life right now seems like a ground zero moment, then what are you becoming with this moment? I think both are very powerful reflection questions to think about. And I kind of took that time to ask myself. I think my ground zero moment in my life was my teenage. When suddenly there was so much change and I was just figuring out what to do with life, what to do with career, and everything was changing physically, mentally, and what's happening with me. But what was my greatest learning? That it will all pass. Nothing is permanent. And so for me, if I'm going through a ground zero moment again in life, that is what I remind myself that this is temporary. It will all pass.
Uh, Avinash, so it'll all pass. Well, if you want to answer this question of yours, if you are going through this right now, what are you becoming? So what would be the answer?
The answer would be I'm becoming more detached. See, what happens is if I am in that moment, I'm so deep into it and I'm lost. But the moment I remember, oh, this is temporary, this will pass. Tomorrow there'll be a better future. Then I'm becoming detached with what's happening in my life. And that detachment helps me manage my emotions better. Thank you, Maimon, for sharing the comment. Yeah, yeah, I love this perspective too. I never thought when I first read it in the index Z for zero, I was like, how do you use zero in coaching? How do you use that in a conversation? But when I read this chapter, I was like, wow, this is such an interesting perspective that she shared. Cool. So we can do one more thing. Since we have time, I'm happy to do one more chapter summary. Give me a moment. Yeah, so poll time again. There were two other options, B for becoming or S for suppose. I'll type it in chat. Which one would you like to dive in? Or S for suppose? Do let me know. We have one S and one B. Okay, I'll wait for one more vote. So the person who votes next has a power to decide which chapter we go with.
Uh,
B. Okay, I'm
Becoming.
going. All right. This is also one of my favorite chapters. I love the word becoming and how it is used in coaching, and I love the story here too. So Hasten shares a story from her childhood. She says, as a child, she told her parents when her parents asked, "Who would you like to become when you grow up?" And this is such a common question we ask kids, you know. Someone says doctor, someone says engineer, someone says scientist, someone says this, that. My daughter says astronaut. She wants to become an astronaut and she wants to go to the solar system. She wants to see the moon. So when Hasun's parents asked her who she wants to become, she said, "I want to become a king." And without questioning or without trying to, influence her, they just accepted. And the next day onwards, they started calling her King Hasten. So when she would come to the breakfast table, she would say, "Here comes King Hasten, come join us." And they would start addressing her as, "Oh, your royalty, your highness, come, King Hasten." That experience made the child in Hasten, as she grew up, believe that she can be whoever she wants to be. And that gave her that confidence in herself. Years later, when her nephew asked her one day that, Aunt, who did you want to be as a child? Did you become that or not? So Hasten replies, "I wanted to be who I have become now." She says, I wanted to be who I've become now. There's no reference to the King Hasun story here, but what she's essentially doing is she's giving back that hope and that belief that her parents gave her that you can be whoever you want. She's passing that back to her nephews by saying, "I have become who I always wanted to be." So that's the essence of that story. And then she moves to a real life example, a case study. Again, we meet Insu Kim Berg here, the Korean psychotherapist. So she shares a case study in which Insu is having a conversation with a client, and the client talks about some of their erratic beliefs. They believe that someone on their upper floor is causing some disturbance, and which is why this person is not able to sleep, and some kind of other weird beliefs. Insu never doubts. She says, "Okay, all right, let's say a miracle happened. Who would you become after the miracle?" And the fact that Insu, as a therapist, believed the client's story, the client also had that trust and safety. And so she thought, okay, if a miracle happened, I'll be able to sleep better. In order for me to sleep better, this is what I would do. And she starts identifying action items on how she can sleep better. So, and that also led to the miracle question intervention. What is a miracle question? Um, in coaching, how we often ask, if you had a magic wand, what would you do? Or let's say a miracle happened, what would that miracle be? So this is called the miracle question intervention, which kind of happened, which comes from solution focused brief therapy, is what I understand. So what Hazen talks about here is radically accepting another's truth. Whether your child says they want to be a king and queen, or whether your client says they come up with their erratic beliefs about their neighbors, you radically accept that that is their truth. And without questioning that, you move them towards the future. Empathy, even then, to be there for others. And somewhere when I went through my coach training, I remembered this childhood experience again. So that came back to me when I thought of this question. Ask someone what's becoming clearer in a conversation and focus not on their life crisis, but what's becoming clearer for them. That's another way how we can use the word becoming. Who you're becoming or what's becoming clearer for you in this conversation. And we also have Coach Potato hiding on this slide if anyone found to share on chat. Yes, it's in a child's hands. All right. So how do we move forward? If you are open to it, there's one more chapter, S for suppose. We can cover it if you want, or we can move towards the next chapter.
Avinash,
We
a
have
couple
one
of
more in
questions in this slide, and then we can go to the other chapter. I'm also having a client who's having difficulty sleeping. I tried coaching, uh, doesn't, to me, the problem is still there. So I'm a little contemplating if I can use some NLP tools with his permission. I'm in that state. Does this book give any clue on how to move forward there? Because this just triggered that.
Yeah, I don't think so, because the book essentially focuses on how you can use different words in conversation, but it doesn't share any guides or how to's to solve any chronic problems or how to, deal with clients who are stuck in the same place. Again, here it sounds like this could also be something to do with physical or mental health. It's not stuck in a way, stuck in a limiting belief or stuck in the same circle. Uh, so I'm not sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, cool.
Since these seems to be interesting, would you like to cover the other one also?
Sure, I'm happy to do that since we have time if everybody's okay with that. Yes, this is the one. S for suppose. The story here is also from Hasten's personal life. When Hasten's father was diagnosed with lung cancer, he couldn't stop thinking about dying. He kept talking about how many years he has left. He might die very soon. And he was still trying to process that news that, oh, he has cancer. So then Hasten asked him, suppose you have a few more years, what would you do? And her father smiles. And then he reveals how he had made a promise to his wife at one point that they will go traveling to these places at some point in their life, which never happened. They never got an opportunity to do so. And so he starts planning that long due trip with his wife. So, a very interesting story about how, in that moment, and this was difficult for the author also. She talks about how difficult this moment was for her, finding out that her father has cancer. But even in that difficult moment, she was able to think and move her father towards a more hopeful mindset by asking this question. And then she shares a real life example when she was working with a mother who felt inadequate as a parent. The client kept saying, "I'm not a good mother. I'm not a good parent. Uh, I'm not doing this right. I'm not doing that right." And so, by asking questions with a suppose your child grew up and they said this, suppose this happened, what would change for you? Hasten was able to move the client towards a more confident, happy mother with a positive self image. And she calls this, she uses the phrase, imagine your preferred future. You know, so imagineering, you're imagining and engineering at the same time. You're imagining and building a preferred future for you and moving the client towards that. So the reflection guide here says, imagine your preferred future with this miracle question. Suppose a miracle happened. I don't know, Jesse, if you can use this in the case scenario that you were asking, but maybe I'm not sure based on the situation. Suppose something different happened. Suppose you have all the time. Suppose you have all the money. These are questions we ask a lot of times, especially to challenge any limiting belief or limiting bias that our clients come up with. So this is one way you could use suppose to move clients towards a preferred future. That brings me to the end of the chapter summaries. I will open this up for discussion, but before that, just a small follow-up activity. We'll see the same image we saw at the beginning of the session. I want you to see that image again and think of one word, only one word. Okay. And if it's a different word from what you first thought of, what changed for you in this image? And if it's the same word, then what about this image stayed with you even now? Oh, wow. There is light and darkness. Lovely. Word changed to miracle. Wow, lovely. What changed for you? If you could share that. It's interesting how everybody came up with a different word for the same image.
May I share?
Yes, please do.
When I first look at it at the beginning, although I only see the light bulb, so I'll say, yeah, inspiration. But after the whole session, then I look at the whole picture, and it has got very a lot of dark colorings and whatnot, but you see that shimmer of light even on the ground, and you see a lot of like light radiating. So it's like hope. So I see
Wow.
the whole picture rather than just that center of the picture.
Yeah, lovely. Thanks for sharing that. And that happens very commonly with us. Look at an image, there's one thing that grabs our attention. But as we spend more time with it, more elements. I like how you notice the dark shades and the darkness and the reflection of light on the waters. Light and hope. Lovely. Thanks for sharing. All right. So I think we'll open this up for discussion. If anyone has any questions about the book, or if you want to share your own thoughts or ideas, feel free to unmute, come forward and share something or type it out in chat. Anything.
Uh, so Avinash, few questions from my side. So it looks like this author is also a therapist and a coach. So uh, how is she managing both?
Hmm.
Any idea?
I'm not entirely sure, but I have come across a lot of coaches who are also therapists. And even ICF has a very clear guideline that you're also into consulting, into training the therapist, as long as you're clear about the role. Like I'm not being a coach in this session. I'm just being a speaker. So as long as you're consciously, intentionally being aware of that role, it is okay for people to have those two roles. There are people who are therapists and coaches, or coaches and trainers, and coaches and consultants. As long as your client knows and is aware that today you're being a coach, today you're being a therapist. And more often than not, they may not have the same clients in both therapy and coaching. Maybe rare. So I'm assuming that's how they manage. And I think everyone who's a coach is also being someone else in our journey. When we do webinars, when we are speaking, or when we are training, mentoring, we are also playing other roles. We're just switching those hats. So as long as the client or the people whom you're working with are aware of what role you're playing today, I think that should be fine.
So thank you for that. Um, so yes, I thought and I forgot to. Uh, so this whole book has stories for each letter. So there are A to Z stories, one story. Is it so?
So there are chapters, 26 chapters. Each chapter has one word, and within the chapter there's a story. a real life case study, and a reflection book. Thank you, Memon, for your comment. Sure, thanks for being here. And yeah, I agree with you. This book is something that you can keep rereading and have different takes on it every time.
So no more questions from my side. Amber, do you have anything, or shall we go to the conclusion? Okay. So thank you, Avinash. Thank you for taking this initiative and presenting it for us. Appreciate all your effort, and it's been a good learning journey for us and for all the people who will be watching it online also. Thank you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. Thanks, Jisu. Thanks, Amber. Thanks to everybody who took out the time, joined, and participated and shared their thoughts.